millions of things in his life, and he has his lovely wife, Beth, with him. They're both over 90, and Hyland will talk for Beth about how he first met her, and about famous people he's met, etc., etc. Hyland, it's all yours.
I have to begin by saying how lovely it was for all of us to get these hearts from the third graders. And it was really appreciated. They've done this before, but it's such a nice treat. And I want to say happy Valentine's Day to everybody. We can't forget that's what today is. And I just wanted to say each one of you could be up here. Whether you're 90 or not doesn't matter, but you've all had great experiences, and somehow we have to tap into all the experiences that all of you have had. I feel very lucky. That's my theme. I've been very fortunate in life, starting with how I met Beth. On a blind date, I came here to this area along with Myra and Bob. We lived in Southampton, and they're not here, so maybe they're afraid of what I was going to say. But we rode our bikes. I was 16, Myra was 12, 13, and Bob was 2 years younger. And 2 round trips a day from Southampton to the academy and back. And lots of things happened there. But I met Beth. We've been married over 66 years, but I met her on a blind date because the first dance when I came here as a junior, Sig, her brother, Sig Sinisvet, was in the class, and I said, Sig, I don't know these girls. I don't know who to ask to the dance. He said, I don't want to give you any pressure, but my sister doesn't have a date. So I said, well, how will I meet her? I don't know her. He said, you'll find her in a Dodge 7-passenger car in front, and she takes the little kids home down Alden Road. So I rode up on my bicycle and put my foot on the running board, and she rolled the window down, and I asked her to the dance. And of course, the little kids in back all snickered about that. But that was the first. And we dated on and off for 9 years. In the interim, there was the war and college and so much else. But I want to give a little tribute to Beth because she can't be part of this. And she really started the art program in the elementary school many years ago. And she taught art in the elementary school and in our college to the teachers for 28 years as a volunteer for 28 years. And she wrote 2 books. She co-authored one, Art and Education, that's still being used in the elementary school. And our elementary schools in the general church. The elementary schools throughout the general church. And then she wrote by herself a book called Heads, Hands, and Hearts on creativity and how you bring creativity not just in the classroom, but into your life. And it's a book that's still used in the college course today. And so I had the wonderful idea a year before she turned 90. And I told the kids, I'm going to do a book. I'm going to hire somebody to do a book, a memory book for Mom. And they said, Dad, we can do it better. And they could. They're all got her talents in various forms of photography and painting and graphic arts and writing and editing. And they did a beautiful job. And when we came here, I put this book into the lobby, and it's gone now. But I will leave this one also as a copy because it is such a marvelous tribute to her legacy, and I just think it should be preserved. So that's part of that story. I also want to give a tribute to my parents because they really inculcated volunteerism into us. Both of them were tremendous volunteers. We grew up in the Methodist Church in Westfield, New Jersey, and came down here in 1941. And Otho Hahn, got us into the church. So he gets a lot of credit or blame, whichever way you want to look at it. But we came here, and my mother later on was one of the first residents here in Cairnwood Village. But she was a great volunteer back in New Jersey and here, and everybody knew Granny Johns. And my father was a tremendous volunteer. He volunteered in the First World War, and he volunteered in the Second World War. Can you imagine that? When he was 53, he lost 30 pounds, got himself into shape, and went back into the service for the duration. He was a very committed volunteer. Anyway, my first volunteer job was the fire company when we moved here. And I worked for the borough as a volunteer for 67 years. Most every job they had. And 37 of those 67 years was connected with borough council. And as mayor, I performed, among many other things, weddings. I performed 8 weddings under many conditions, and there are a lot of good stories about those. But I would always try to get them to have a minister, but many people, for various reasons, wanted to have a civil ceremony. And I married a Japanese couple, a Chinese couple, a South American couple. I married people with many different ethnic backgrounds. I performed a Shinto ceremony, which is another story in itself. And the funniest of I had in those 8 weddings, somebody in town you all know very well, so I won't use his name, called me up and said, I want to marry somebody, and I said, just give me a call. They'd done the paperwork. And then he called again. He said, I'm in a hurry because we want to go buy a used car. I said, just drive down the driveway and roll your window down and I'll marry you. Actually, the civil law has the same 2 basic things that the church does. The main thing is consent. And both have to consent. And that's the basis of it. All the things you see on television and in the movies, of witnesses and all those things. Now the laws vary from state to state, but most of that just isn't necessary. You just need to have consent. Now many of the couples wrote their own services, so it was very moving. It was quite an experience. Another very moving experience, and I'm jumping around now, looking at the time, I spent many years as Santa Claus at Holy Redeemer Hospital for the children of employees. And then I would go up to pediatrics, to the sick children. And that was so hard, but it was so rewarding to those sick children. And I've had a lot of experiences with 50 years at Osplin, 30 years with Holy Redeemer, and I've traveled for business or pleasure, or in World War II, I've been in 40 countries. And they're all good stories, but I won't do that now, because I want to cover the rest of this. I've met some interesting people. I've been very lucky to meet them, and each one is a story. I met the first George Bush, and we got him to plant a tree at Arlington with us in the association. And he dedicated the tree. And I talked to him both then and in the little gathering afterwards. And he told me he knows all about Bernathen. And his grandfather was a church, a minister in the convention church. Many people didn't know that. I met Bob Hope and his whole entourage. And the Glee Club had a party for them. And that guy is just amazing. All of the rest of his gang just collapsed. They'd done two performances that night in the music hall. Purdue's Music Hall was larger than Radio City. And so we gave him a party which went until 3 o'clock in the morning, and he never stopped. He was just great, just kept going. I met Walt Disney at Purdue, and Walt and his brother Roy, and I performed for them. I had tried out for a small part in a play he was trying out there. It never went anywhere. I don't think it was my fault. And Fred Waring, many of you know Fred Waring. looked at all the trees on his property and counseled him. And I met many senators and congressmen, and we dedicated some trees in Washington around the Capitol. And I testified before a congressional committee and lots of other things. I mentioned the jobs I've had. I didn't mention some jobs I had growing up, going to school and so forth, but I was a Fuller brush man, and I sold cosmetics. I had 1 day's training with my supervisor, and then I sold everything in their line of cosmetics. And I got so I could say to the woman of the house, you can use our deodorant after underarm shaving without any fear of irritation. I didn't laugh. I kept a straight face. But it was very lucrative, and it was in New York City. I had 3 competitors all selling door to door. And I was a good humor man. That was the first job I had in New Jersey when I turned 16. And there are a lot of stories with that. But I've been a bus driver, an usher, a janitor, a dishwasher, and many other things. So I've had all the experiences. And so after that, everything is very easy. But just end with a little quote that I think is apropos for all of us. Live your life and forget your age.